I am a sucker for cool-looking smartphones. There's just something about motorized camera modules and sleek sliding mechanisms that just speaks to me. But the problem with those phones is that you typically have to give up something pretty significant just to have that cool new feature. And the latest phone to fall victim to this trap is this one. It's the Xiaomi Mi 8 Pro. And the problem is, I didn't think that Xiaomi needed to make this sacrifice just to have this phone. Here are my first impressions. So if you've been following the news, you'll know that the Xiaomi Mi 8 Pro is basically the mass market version of the Xiaomi Mi 8 Explorer Edition that launched alongside the regular Mi 8. And for good reason, because it has a lot of the same kind of features that you find on the Mi 8 Explorer Edition. And the most notable one is this design. So this phone is in a color they call transparent titanium, and that means you get this see-through back panel that lets you look at the internal components that are powering your smartphone. But if this device, this back, is anything like the Mi 8 Explorer Edition, then all these components that you see, those aren't actually the components that are powering your smartphone. They're just sort of like a dummy unit, so it looks cool. And yes, I know HTC has done the whole transparent thing before, and yes, you might think that, it's kind of a cheap trick, but you have to admit that the effect is pretty cool. And it's not just a pretty face either, because this smartphone feels about as premium as any flagship should. It's nice and ergonomic with the gentle curves on the back, and it has the same kind of premium build quality and footprint as the Mi 8, which is very good. I particularly like the heft that this phone has because it's not too heavy, but it is weighty enough that it gives you that premium vibe. Plus, it also has a neat little colored power button, so it adds a little bit of color to this otherwise black and monochromatic smartphone. Up front, you're also getting the same kind of display as the Xiaomi Mi 8. It is a 6.21-inch panel that is an AMOLED panel, and it pushes a resolution of Full HD+. People will obviously take issue with the rather sizable notch at the top, but it's there for obvious reasons. I mean, it houses the 20-megapixel selfie camera as well as the sensors needed for face unlocking. But here is one of the biggest differences between the Mi 8 Pro and the Mi 8 Explorer Edition. So the Mi 8 Pro does not have a 3D face unlocking system. Instead, it has a normal infrared face unlocking that's similar to the Mi 8. So that means you don't quite get that advanced level of face unlocking, but from my testing, it's still really fast and really accurate. However, Xiaomi did keep the pressure-sensitive in-display fingerprint scanner that debuted with the Mi 8 Explorer Edition. So it's still here, and based on my testing, it's about as fast and as responsive and as accurate as the Mate 20 Pro, which is pretty good by in-display fingerprint standards, but it's still nowhere near as fast or as good as regular fingerprint scanners used to be. So that is kind of a bummer, but the trade-off is you get a more futuristic piece of technology. Inside, the Mi 8 Pro also features the same kind of flagship level specs as the Mi 8 Explorer Edition. The unit we get in Malaysia comes with a Snapdragon 845 processor, 8 gigs of RAM, and 128 gigs of internal storage. Unfortunately, that storage isn't expandable, nor is there a 3.5mm headphone jack, but it's 2018, so you can't expect that from flagship smartphones already. Naturally, with those specs, performance is pretty solid. Everything is smooth, apps launch quickly, but again, this is a first impression, so I don't have my apps on it yet, so I can't really make a solid judgment, but stay tuned for the full review. Though, since it's running MIUI and it has these flagship specs, I don't expect it to be a particularly laggy smartphone. Speaking of, this phone is running on MIUI, so you already know whether you like that or not, because it's quite a polarizing software. I think it's pretty okay. I think it's one of the better skins to come out of China, but I don't like the fact that it doesn't have an app drawer and some of the icons are a little bit too cartoony for my taste. But your preferences may vary, so keep that in mind. One thing that is rather surprising for me is that this smartphone doesn't come with MIUI 10 out of the box. Instead, the unit that I have here is on MIUI 9.6.5. So that's kind of a bit disappointing because our Mi 8, which is in the office, is also the global version, same as this, that is already on MIUI 10. For photos, you're getting the same camera setup as the Mi 8, so that means you get two 12-megapixel sensors, one with an f1.8 aperture wide-angle lens and the other with an f2.4 aperture short telephoto lens. So it can do the same kind of camera stuff as the Mi 8 and it should produce the same kind of images too. But I haven't really tested the camera on this yet, so I can't tell you if it's very good or very bad, so stay tuned for a full review. But now we get to the significant sacrifice I was talking about earlier in this video, and that is the smartphone's battery. You see, the Mi 8 Pro doesn't have the same battery as the Mi 8. Instead, it has a smaller one. You see, inside you only get a 3000 mAh cell, which is much smaller than the Mi 8's 3400 mAh. That is a pretty significant downgrade, especially considering the fact that both these smartphones are running on the same processor with the same kind of memory and the same kind of screen. For context, my colleague who's reviewing the Xiaomi Mi 8 says that he gets about average battery life with that smartphone. That means about 4 to 5 hours of screen on time for a whole day's usage. The thing is, I don't see this smartphone matching that or even being better than that smartphone because they have the same kind of specs, so I assume that they will draw the same kind of power. But that's not even the thing that annoys me about it. The thing that pisses me off is that I don't think Xiaomi needed to do this with this smartphone. You see, the Mi 8 isn't designed to be some envelope-pushing experimental device. The Mi 8 line of smartphones is meant to be their mass-market commercial device that's designed to give the people who buy their smartphones the best smartphone that their money can buy, the best bang-for-buck device. A phone that should never sacrifice function for form, and yet that's exactly what they did with the Mi 8 Pro. You see, they don't have to do it because they have the Xiaomi Mi Mix line of smartphones. That is the one that's going to be impractical, that's going to push the envelope, it's going to do ridiculously cool things and, you know, look good doing it. The Mi 8 just needs to be a reliable smartphone, and if you're a Mi 8 Pro, it needs to be more reliable, have more function than the regular Mi 8. Instead, what you're getting is a smaller battery and a pretty glass design. But I will hold off further criticism until I've had a chance to give this smartphone a full review. Who knows, maybe my worries about its battery performance will be completely unfounded. I mean, I don't think so, but there's a chance. In any case, if you want to buy this smartphone, the Xiaomi Mi 8 Pro will be going on sale in Malaysia from the 10th of November onwards, and you can pick it up at any authorized Mi store. The smartphone, with 8 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage, will retail for 2,399 ringgit. That is 500 ringgit more than the top spec Mi 8 with 6 gigs of RAM and 128 gigs of storage. Let that sink in. 500 ringgit more for a smaller battery and this cool transparent bag. Is that worth your money? Let me know in the comments below. But that's it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked it, be sure to give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Click on that notification bell icon so you don't miss any of our future videos. You can also like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, and be sure to keep your browser locked to searchandchow.com for all of the most refreshing servings of tech news. I'm Rory, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video. Bye!